Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another range report. And today's range report is on something new and cool. This is the Walther WMP, a 22 Magnum semi-automatic pistol. I guess Walther wanted to get into competition with Kel-Tec for a gun like this. And when this thing hit the market, there were a bunch of gun reviewers that were oogly googly over this thing. They're like, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread if you want a 22 Magnum pistol. And of course, it's not a Kel-Tec, so the quality must be better, right? Well, we're gonna find out. But before I get into the things that I like and don't like about this pistol, I always want to thank the people that make these videos possible. First and foremost is the owner of this pistol who lent it to the channel for review, my good friend Jack. Jack, thank you so much. It means a lot to me. I also want to thank my Patreon supporters as always, because through their monthly donations and support, they help keep the lights on around here. And if you guys want to be a Patreon supporter and see all of these videos early, you can join for as little as $1 a month. There is a link in the description. And as always, I want to thank my primary sponsor who always provides all of the ammunition. However, for this video, I do want to give another shout out to Jack because he gave me the ammunition for this one, because 22 Magnum is not a caliber that I keep on hand. But I still want to thank my awesome sponsor, my good friend Mark from Brownworks. And yes, I'm coming to you to tell you about the best grip company in the world that I know, Brownworks. They are a huge sponsor of the Texas Gun Vault, and it means so much to me. I'm asking you guys, if you are in the market for custom wood grips, things with custom logos, custom engravings, custom textures, and a wide variety of colors made out of a wide variety of exotic woods and materials, the company you need to go check out is Brownworks. Mark over there is an artist. He's a craftsman. He makes some of the best grips in the world, and each one is customized and made to order just for you. So I'm going to put a link in the comment section below. Go over there, check out, see what he has to offer. If you don't see what you're looking for, make sure to contact Mark. But I can tell you he's more busy making custom grips for his customers than he is always updating his website. So as I said, please contact him. He will hook you up. Thank him for supporting the Texas Gun Vault, and tell him Jason from the Texas Gun Vault sent you. All right, so what is this pistol? I've already alluded to it a little bit. This is a 22 Magnum semi-automatic pistol made by Walther. It has the typical Walther stylings. It kind of looks like a PPQ, maybe a little bit like a PDP, just a little bit, or a P22. It just kind of all has that same look. Walthers in some ways are kind of like Glocks in that a lot of the models look very similar. Now, even though this looks very similar to the PPQ, you have to know this is a hammer-fired gun. Yeah, it kind of surprised me. I honestly thought, looking at it, it was going to be striker-fired, because you don't see a hammer here in the back. It looks like a striker-fired pistol, but it is a hammer-fired pistol, and there it is. Yeah, that kind of surprised me. And for a 22 pistol, I think I would prefer something that is striker fired to get a more consistent trigger pull. But we'll find out the more I review this and talk about my experiences. So let's talk about the things that I like and don't like. And as always, I want to start out with the things that I like first. And I've already told you this pistol looks like a Walther, and I like the way Walthers look personally, so I think the styling of this is really nice. This looks like a real gun. I mean, it is a real gun, but it looks like something else. It looks like other guns that you're familiar with. One of the things I didn't like about the Kel-Tec is that it kind of looks a little bit too space age for me. It's put together with screws. Yeah, this gun doesn't have that. It looks like a PPQ. It looks like a real gun. As I said, it is a real gun. It's not a toy, but it just has the right looks for me. If you're gonna make a gun, make it look like it's quality, and the Walther aesthetics, I think, really do that. I like the sights that this gun comes with. We have some pretty high sights here in the back. Let me get that in focus. There we go. We have a fiber optic front sight. Very, very easy to see. Something that is really interesting about the design of this pistol is the magazine magazine release. It is ambi, so it is on both sides, but we also have the little levers around the trigger guard like you typically would see on a German-made HK. But they don't all sync up. Like on the HKs, when you push down the lever on one side, it pushes down the lever on the other. These are independent. It's kind of different and interesting. So there's the one on that side, here's the one on this side, then you got the button right here, and the button right there. So they were really concerned about getting these magazines out of the gun. And honestly, I'm a big fan of those European mag releases. I find them to be very ergonomic and very intuitive. So I like having them on this gun, and I like the fact that they are ambi. I also really like the fact that this gun has a traditional way of taking it down. So you pull the slide back, you have a typical takedown lever right here on the side. It comes apart just like a typical SIG or a Walther. There's no special need for instructions or tools to get this gun apart. Sometimes when it comes to 22 pistols or 22 Magnum pistols, you gotta do something special with it. This is a typical takedown. And I'm also a big fan of the capacity of these magazines. They're 15 rounds. Yeah, they could probably be a little bit more, but remember, 22 Magnum is a rimmed cartridge, so stacking them in a magazine can be kind of tricky. Many times these companies only want to give you 10 round magazines, and they say it's for reliability. I think it's because they only want to make one kind of magazine for all of the restricted places that they would sell these guns in, but I'm sure glad that they offer 15 round mags for the free states. So having that extra capacity in here, I think, is a really nice feature because the gun is a full-sized pistol. But now let's talk about a couple of things that I don't like. And the first one is something that I can't show you on camera, and that is this gun kind of feels a little bit cheap. You guys know if you handle some type of 22 dedicated pistol that looks like a big brother of a 9mm or 45, many times the slide is made of cheaper materials, the polymer isn't as nice, it just feels cheaper. This gun definitely feels cheaper. And I've heard some people this is actually not made by Walther, it's made under license by Umarex. I don't see any markings on the pistol that indicate that, but from the quality of the polymer and the way that the slide is machined, that might be the case, but I'm not 100% sure. But either way, the gun does feel a little bit cheap. The other thing I don't like, I've already told you about, it is hammer fired, and I think that makes the trigger pull on this a little bit awkward and weird. It just doesn't feel very good. Now, because this is rimfire, I'm not going to dry fire it here on the workbench, but I can tell you that when the hammer is cocked and you pull the trigger, that hammer does move a little bit as you're pulling the trigger back. That's kind of weird. It's not like it's caught behind a traditional sear. You're actually pulling that trigger back and the hammer back together, and that makes the trigger pull kind of weird. I don't know if that's going to affect the accuracy of this. It just doesn't feel very solid when I fired it at the range. But speaking of the range, it's time to take the gun there. So I'm going to set up the target as always at 7 yards, and I'm going to put 2 magazines through this because sometimes these 22 Magnum pistols can be a little bit ammo sensitive. So the first magazine, I'm going to put some Winchester varmint, in case you're wondering. This is 25 grains, and they claim it has 2,100 feet per second. That's going to be the first magazine. And the second magazine is going to be CCI Maxi Mags. They are 40 grains traveling at 1,875 feet a second. This is some of the best 22 Magnum out there, so I think this is kind of the industry standard. Some people say the Winchester doesn't work, so we're going to find out, and I also have one other ammo type that we're going to try out later. But here we go, the first 2 mags through this thing. Let's see how it performs. The Winchester will be shot at the center of the silhouette and the CCI Maxi Mags at the head. So let's see what happens. All right, so let's address the elephant in the room first. Yes, the gun is ammo sensitive. Now, it is my understanding that this Winchester stuff is not loaded to really 22 Magnum specs. And I can tell you, shooting the 2 cartridges through this gun, you can hear and feel a big difference. This does not feel like 22 Magnum. So this is probably designed either for a lever gun or maybe a revolver. Even though it claims it's 2,100 feet per second and the fastest velocity, it just doesn't have the power to cycle that slide. And obviously the CCI Maxi Mags did. Now, the trigger honestly kind of sucks. The gun, however, was very accurate and I feel like I shot it pretty darn good. But the trigger just doesn't feel solid. The reset, the wall, it feels cheap. It feels plasticky. And once again, if you notice in the video, watch the hammer if you can see it, and you notice when I pull the trigger back, that hammer comes back as well. So it adds that extra weight and it makes the break of the trigger not as predictable. I've never seen that in a hammer fired gun before. I know in a Glock pistol, when you pull the trigger, you're pulling the striker back, but here you're actually cocking the hammer more. And in a 22 Magnum pistol, it's a little bit weird for my taste. But as I said, the gun was accurate and it had a very light recoil. All right, so now we're gonna set out the target at a little bit further distance, and now I am going to use the Fiocchi Range Dynamics ammo, and this claims it is 40 grains traveling at 1,900 feet a second. So we're gonna try another ammo type and see if this gun continues to be accurate. So let's see what happens. And the gun performed great, no problems. Well, I guess there was that one failure to fire, and here is my complaint with 22 Magnum. It is still a rimfire cartridge. Some people will say, well, obviously 22 isn't good enough for self-defense, but 22 Magnum is. The problem is, it is rimfire, and you are going to get those duds from time to time. And when it comes to a caliber that you're going to use for self-defense, I want something that's going to go bang way more often. And 22 Magnum is still going to have issues because it is rimfire. Now, granted, it was only 1 round, but that could be the difference between life and death in a self-defense situation. But the rest of the ammo ran great, and the Fiocchi cycled the action just fine, and the gun continued to be accurate. All right, so now we're going to set out the target at the full distance at this range at 25 yards. I'm going to go back to using the CCI Maxi Mags, and I want to see once again if this gun's accuracy continues, even though I'm not super happy with the trigger. But once again, it's functioning well. So I guess I can't complain. It's just more of the feeling that I get from holding the gun and pulling that trigger. It doesn't feel super solid. But once again, let's set out the target 25 yards, put another magazine through this, and see if it's still accurate.
I'll just have to shoot.
And I really can't complain with those results. It shoots really well. It's a natural shooting pistol with exceptionally low recoil. The one thing though, if it does come to a self-defense scenario and you are in low light situations, that flash of the .22 Magnum can definitely get in the way. It can be a little bit distracting. All right, so the next test I'm going to do is the quick magazine change. As I said, some people actually like .22 Magnum for self-defense because it is better than .22 long rifle, but it's really low recoil if you are recoil sensitive and can't carry a 9mm. So I'm just curious, can I shoot this gun fast? Is this trigger good enough to do that? And can I get this magazine in and out of this gun really fast, especially with all these different options for me dropping the magazine? So let's see how fast I can shoot this thing. Alright, so I can shoot this thing pretty fast. However, I discovered two issues with this gun. The first is going to be with the button magazine release. I'm going to show you this here on camera. The button magazine release is right next to this ledge. In fact, it is pretty much flush with this ledge. And if you come in with your thumb, you end up pushing down on that ledge, and that actually slows you down a little bit. You have to keep your thumb higher on the pistol than maybe you want to. Why they have that ledge there, I don't know. Maybe it's to prevent you from accidentally releasing the magazine, but that ledge is way too tall. The other thing I did that you might not have noticed on camera is I did pinch my hand, and that's because the base plate of these magazines are really steeped, as you can see right there. Hopefully I can get that into focus. And so when I was exchanging the magazine out, I put my fingers right here, and when I slammed that magazine in, I pinched my fingers. In fact, I think you can still see on my finger from going to the range, I have a little blister right there. Yeah, I jammed my finger in there. And because it has that wide ledge, if you insert that magazine wrong, you can pinch yourself. Yeah, why is that base plate so large and designed that way? Not really sure why. I think there could have been a little bit better way of doing that. But because that base plate is so large, once again, I pinched myself. It kind of hurt. But I kept the gun going and was able to shoot it pretty fast and didn't have any other issues. So once again, I guess I really can't complain. I want to do one more thing before I give you guys my final thoughts, and that is always give my wife Becky a chance to shoot this. She likes to shoot every gun that comes through the Texas Gun Vault, and she did like the Kel-Tec in .22 Magnum before, so I'm curious what she's going to think of the Walther. So let me load up another magazine and see what she thinks. And I think she shot it pretty well. After she shot it, she did say that she liked it and that it was pretty ergonomic to hold. She only had two complaints. The first one is the gun does feel cheap to her as well. And she also mentioned that the texture of this grip seems to be a little bit too aggressive for her, and it does feel a little bit more aggressive than your typical Walther textures like on the PPQ. So why do they put an aggressive texture on a gun that doesn't have a lot of recoil? I don't really know. Once again, I think this has to do with the plastic that they used or the polymer, because it doesn't feel the same as their other guns. It feels cheaper. So maybe that's why they had to mold it that way. And of course, she is a little bit grip sensitive at times. It wasn't bad, but it's something that she did notice. All right, so what are my final thoughts on the Walther WMP? Well, it's a cool looking gun. I like the fact that it is full size, has a lot of capacity. It is in an interesting caliber. However, the action of the pistol is just straight blowback, so that is a little bit on the boring side. It does feel a little bit cheap. I feel like the trigger also feels a little bit cheap. Not a big fan of it being hammer fired, but I really had no issues with it. And I think if you're in the market for a .22 Magnum pistol, I probably would go for the WMP over the Kel-Tec. And granted, yes, I am a little bit biased against Kel-Tec. You guys know that I've had Kel-Tecs literally fall apart in my hand at the range. And people always tell me, Jason, you hate on Kel-Tecs. I really don't. It's just my own personal experiences. I really feel that they're a very innovative company. However, the execution of that innovation isn't always the best. And I know there's another YouTuber out there that likes to say Kel-Tecs don't need a break-in period. They just break, period. And honestly, that has been my personal experience. But when it comes to Walther, even on their cheaper Umarex guns, I've never had that issue. So if you want a .22 Magnum pistol that is accurate, might not be the greatest pistol in the world, but this thing definitely runs, it's accurate, it works, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna have some pretty decent aftermarket support because it is a Walther. I know other gun reviewers have ranted and raved over these things, like, wow, it's amazing. For me, .22 Magnum is just not a caliber that I really want a semi-automatic pistol in, but I am glad companies are making it for consumers who want it. So on my star system, how would I rate the WMP from Walther? Well, it does feel cheap, and because of that, I can only give it 3.5 stars out of 5. There's a lot about this pistol that I like, but the trigger and the quality kind of bother me a little bit. It's just not as nice as the other offerings in the Walther line. I even feel like the P22 is a little bit nicer built than this, but the gun does work. It is exceptionally accurate, and so I can't ding it for any of that. It also looks really nice. I think it has some great aesthetics. So 3.5 stars out of 5 for the Walther WMP. What do you guys think? Do you guys like .22 Magnum and semi-automatic pistols? I would like to know your thought in the comment section below. And would you rather have this or the Kel-Tec? So, as always, thanks for watching.